Hey there. The world is going bonkers. It has absolutely gone bonkers. And it may feel like that you're doing the same thing. You're going bonkers as well. We know that stress is compounding every day, and we're constantly being bombarded by negative news, messages, and images that only increase our stress and the feeling of anxiety. So, how can we reset? The answer is retreat. In today's Stress Talk with Marcyline, we're going to talk about retreat. Retreat when vacations are not enough. And we're going to get to it in just one moment. Wow, this has been this has really been an interesting afternoon for me. Welcome, 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 ladies. I want to welcome all of you who are watching by replay and also who are listening via the Stress Talk podcast. I'm Marcelyn Bailey of Stress Talk, and Stress Talk shares strategies for overstressed super women who are over 40, the over 40 crowd, right? That includes me. I've been over 40 for a little while now. What we want is to share those strategies to help you to lower your stress levels to a just right point. Because when stress levels are just right, we have the motivation and the energy to meet whatever challenges we face throughout the day. Because we know that stress is important in our lives. It's not all bad. It's good, but it's not good when it's overwhelming stress. So today we're going to be talking about retreat when vacations are not enough. And I thought about this because when we talk about spring, we always talk about springing forward. So, how can we spring forward, lower our stress levels to a just right point, and boost our energy at the same time? But let me ask you a question. How many of you have gone on a retreat recently? If you've gone on a retreat recently, just drop yes in the comment section. And I'm just curious about that. And for those of you who are watching on the replay, drop yes in the comment section as well. You can still do that. You don't have to refrain from commenting, although you are watching it by replay, or if you're just listening to it via the podcast, you can still comment. I love to hear your comments and I love to hear what you have to say. Also, if you have a question, just drop it in the comment section and I'll try to answer it as soon as I can. So, I talked about spring being upon us, and when we talk about spring, we think about springing forward because we have to turn our clocks, bump our clocks like an hour ahead, right? We actually lose time, we think. But we bump it an hour ahead and we're told to spring into it. And there's lots of things about springing forward, springing into it. It's almost like we're jumping into something new. The idea is that life on earth is being awakened. I mean, we think about the trees, we think about the grass, we think about all the plants pollinating, and some of that causes us to sneeze because we have allergies. Like me, you might have allergies. Anybody out there with allergies? If you do, say I do, I do, I do, I do, I have allergies. But in the springtime, the temperatures gradually start to heat. up and warm up, and the planet starts to turn green. Basically, life is reborn. All of the brown that we saw because of the winter begins to turn green and come forth. I grew up in the north. I grew up in Ohio, and one of the signs of spring was the crocuses. The crocuses were flowers that would just pop open around April, and it didn't matter if it was snowing or the weather was cold, those crocuses would come up with beautiful colors, with pinks, different shades of pink and yellows, and they would grow, and the leaves would be green. And it was just our one of the signs that we experienced that told us that spring was indeed here. But the other thing that when we think about spring is that spring brings hope. It's like a rebirth, as I said before. Things are fresh and new, and we are excited for it to come. What we don't always think about and we don't always acknowledge is that spring also brings storms and change and uncertainty, as well as the chronic allergy symptoms that I mentioned earlier. And it's those chronic allergy like symptoms. It's the change, it's the uncertainty, it's the storms that often increase our stress levels. And yes, I'm talking metaphorically, right? I'm talking metaphorically. However, the storms of life, the changes in our lives, that the uncertainty that we face causes us to stress and our stress levels to increase. So how can we reset? How can we tamp down the negative effects of those changes and the uncertainty? Some of us take vacations, and vacations are really nice, they're really good. But I'm suggesting for women over 40, I'm suggesting that we look to retreat. And I'm going to talk about what that means for us as women over 40, as well as what that means for anyone who is feeling stressed and overwhelmed, especially during this era. So, one of the things that I want to share with you today, as we talk about retreat when a vacation is not enough, I want to share with you some information that the American Psychological Association released to us in March. I'm looking at my cat, Bootsy. He's he's below. What is he doing? I don't know what he's doing. I think he's trying to find a soft place to lie down. Um, the American Psychological Association, or the APA, released a report called "Stress in America," and they've been doing uh, this poll for since 2015, I believe, maybe even longer than that. And they use this poll to gauge the stress levels in lives of Americans. And those stress levels, it's important because stress has a lot to do with our overall well being. So in March, they released a special report, and that's what I want to go over some of the statistics that they shared with us as in this report. First, I want to share with you the top sources of our stress that were determined during this in this poll. And I think I'm going to remove myself from, there we go. I'll remove myself from the screen so that you can actually see um, the entire slide and see it well. So, um, the top sources of stress. in America, as was determined by the poll that was done in March, include the following: rising prices. We are all stressed out about the rising prices due to inflation, right? Gas prices have skyrocketed. Our energy bills have gone up tremendously, and our grocery costs have gone up. If you look at, if you've gone to the grocery store recently, you'll notice that everything has increased in cost. 87% of those polled cited rising costs, everyday costs. The cost of living has gone up. Another issue, concern, included the supply chain. The supply chain. We have, during the pandemic, we were all stressed about paper goods, toilet paper, paper towels, not having enough. And some of us hoarded, right? Some of us hoarded toilet paper. But supply chain. We are now finding that some of the common items that we are accustomed to are not readily available. It started during the pandemic, and it has continued. So that is something that is stressing Americans out. Global uncertainty. Yes. Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Yes. As well as potential retaliation from Russia. All of these things, over 80% of Americans are concerned about these things, and that is causing stress levels to increase. But we're also still trying to get over the effects of the pandemic. Two-thirds of adults who were polled said that the COVID-19, the pandemic, changed their lives forever. These may be individuals who lost loved ones, lost their jobs, had losses that were devastating to them. They may still be experiencing the effects of the of COVID-19. Maybe they had COVID-19. Not only that, the cost of the health crisis on people may have caused them to have long-term um, financial um, financial problems because of the cost. Additionally, the majority of people reported that they were neither positively or negatively affected um, the by long-term implications of the pandemic. What they found in the survey, however, is that people continue to experience hardship, especially if their lives and lifestyles were vulnerable to begin with. We also had concerns about our children, and we developed unhealthy coping habits to get through the pandemic. Some of the changes, some of the challenges that many of us experience, or at least the adults in the survey experience, is that they were less active than they wanted to be since the pandemic, um, since 2019 when and 2020, which was the height of the pandemic. Also, over 50% of people experience weight changes. Now, these weight changes could have been a tremendous increase in weight or a decrease in weight, a tremendous decrease in weight. So there were weight changes that were unwanted. Not only that, more than 1 out of 5 Americans said they started drinking more. Ooh, listen to that. More than 1 out of 5, almost 23% of Americans said they started drinking more, consuming more alcohol, to the tune of having 10 or more drinks a week, which is pretty profound. an average of 10 or more drinks a week. So, in addition to being sedentary, in addition to having a major fluctuation in weight, the people in the poll admitted to drinking more than usual because of and during the pandemic. Not only did we have struggles in coping, but um, we also experienced conflicts and separation. And what do I mean by that? I mean that we were separated by our loved ones. We couldn't see them. We couldn't spend time with them. We couldn't be in the same location as they were, which affects us negatively. We know that our well-being is a benefit, a well-being benefit is, no, let me say this differently. We know that we benefit from being around people who we know and love, and who we know and love us. It's important for us to be with people who care about us. It's important for us to show caring to others. And that affects, not having that ability affects our well being in a negative way. So, essential workers like nurses, doctors, um, first responders like police and fire, um, social workers, social workers as well, felt a loss because they were not able to spend time with people that they love because of, again, the pandemic. Also, our relationships were strained and we experienced conflict. I cannot tell you how often I talk to people who were going stir crazy because they were in the same space as their spouse or their partner, or their children for an extended period of time. And it was driving them nuts, really, literally. It was a struggle. They were at each other's throats, they were arguing, they were disagreeing more than not. Not only that, people were canceling gatherings and events because of the pandemic. There were a lot of dissension. There was a lot of dissension because of vaccines. Should you vaccinate or should you not vaccinate? Do you agree with being that everyone should be vaccinated? Do you not agree with being vaccinated? Do you think that vaccinations should be mandated or should they not be mandated? Also, there was just differing opinions about, is the pandemic real? Is it not real? Should we wear masks? Should we not wear masks? And those continue to be causes of conflict. And not only were they causes of conflict among the general population, they were causes of conflict among family members and loved ones. So conflicts and separation also caused increased stress and anxiety among Americans. And here's what I was referring to. More than half of the respondents said that they could have used more emotional support than they received since the pandemic started. People were not getting the support that they needed and desired during the pandemic. A lot of that had to do with just being separated from the people that they loved and cared for and who loved and cared for them. And also, it was due to the conflict. We know that when we receive and are in healthy and supportive relationships, that it promotes resilience. We are better equipped to get through difficult times. We also have a boost to our mental well being. We're healthier mentally, we're healthier physically, emotionally. We are healthier when we are around people who care about us. And so we need to create opportunities for those connections to so that we can be social and we can support each other. Because we did not have this during the pandemic, it caused we experienced negative outcomes in terms of our health, both mental, physical, and emotional. And what about our children? Of course, we were all concerned. Many of us were concerned about children, especially parents. Parents were concerned about their children's social life, their social development because they were not able to be around their peers. They were concerned about their academic progress because many children were out of school, they were homeschooling, they were doing virtual learning, and children were negatively affected by that. They were not in an environment that allowed them to gain academically. So many children are behind and struggling now that most of our children are back in school in person. Also, parents were concerned about their children's emotional health and development as they were concerned about their own. So, because of the pandemic, there were many, many concerns that came out of it. The pandemic has affected us. And when you think about it, starting in 2019, when the pandemic started up until now, 2022, and we're talking about a period of 3 years, we are still experiencing the negative effects of the pandemic, the effects that continue to plague us socially, emotionally, mentally as well. So what can we do? What can we really do to overcome the negative effects of the pandemic and the current situations that we are seeing today? Speaking, and I'll repeat those events of today: higher inflation, higher costs, the war in Ukraine, fears of retaliation, cyber attacks, the cost of living going up. What can we really do? Well, my suggestion, and I strongly suggest, is that we take time to retreat. We take time for ourselves. And what is a retreat actually? What do I mean when I say retreat? A retreat is different from a vacation. A retreat is actually an act of going back or away, especially from something dangerous, difficult, or disagreeable. Think about um, soldiers. Think about soldiers when they're fighting. When they're fighting and they see casualties. Their commanding officer sees casualties or sees that their approach is not working. That commanding officer will command the troops to retreat, to come back from the danger or the difficulty. And they take that time to come back so they can regroup and plan a different strategy. They have time, or they regroup, re-strategize. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm saying that, using it, and they come to a consensus about how to move forward. A retreat is also a place of privacy or safety. A retreat, that's the noun. You can use a retreat where another word for a retreat could be a safe space. It's a safe space. It's a safe haven. It's a comfortable space that's private, that's safe, that allows a person to be themselves in the midst of what's going on around them. Retreat is also a period of time that a person uses to go away, to pray, to think quietly, or to study. These are all definitions of retreat. And they're important definitions because when we think of retreat in a broad sense, such as these three definitions, we give ourselves options that will allow us to use retreats and to retreat in a way that benefits us and in a way that is that we can use to help ourselves. What do I mean by that? I mean that we don't have to retreat in the same way that someone else does. We can make our retreat personal and individualized so that we can benefit from our own retreat in our own way. So, defining retreat, it's an act of going back or away, especially from something dangerous, difficult, or disagreeable. It's a place of privacy or safety, and it's a period of time in which a person goes away to pray, think quietly, or to study. So there are four features of a retreat. And during the month, this month, I'm actually going to talk about each of these features in depth. But for now, I just want to give you an overview of each of the features that are included in a retreat. Number one, a decision and intention. Basically, a decision is made to step away, to step back from the difficulty that one is facing. Excuse me. In addition to a decision being made, and I'm saying a decision, it's a conscious decision. We actually consciously decide to move away, right? To move back. In addition to the decision being made, there is an intention that's set. And that intention is really a resolve. And it's a determination to act in a certain way. So, one of the features of retreating is to make a conscious decision to do so and to set an intention or a resolve to act in a certain way. The second feature of a retreat is that it includes privacy and safety. The retreat should encompass what makes you or creates a space for you that is safe, stable, and secure. When we feel safe, stable, and secure, we are able to be ourselves. We are able to be open, meaning we're open with ourselves and we're open to receiving all that we need in order to move forward. So first we move back, but we move to a place that is safe, stable, and secure so that we can get what we need in order to move forward. Next, there's a time aspect to the retreat. Retreating requires adequate time for the moment and for the need. We need to allow ourselves the time that we need in order to get what we need. When you think about a vacation, sometimes with vacations, we're rushing from point A to point B and then to point C and then to point D, and then we come home. We come home. We've enjoyed our time and we've created memories, but we are exhausted. And remember, one of the features of overwhelming stress is what? Exhaustion. So when we are retreating, we have adequate time for the moment and the need. Meaning, if we are exhausted, we need time to replenish our energy so that, again, we can move forward. And then the fourth aspect of a retreat is action. Retreats, sometimes when we think about retreats, we think about lounging and we think about um, laying around. And yes, some retreats require that. There, that type of relaxation and rest is built in to a retreat. Overall, however, a retreat, when we are retreating, is action oriented. There are behaviors and activities that we engage in to produce certain outcomes and to gain long lasting benefits. So when we think of retreat, four of those aspects, we're making a decision, we're setting an intention, we're we're in a space that is private and safe. We allot time for what we need, and we take actions that produce outcomes and long lasting benefits. So, we're living in an era of great change, great uncertainty, and chronic ills that don't seem to be going away. So, this month, I'm taking the time to talk about retreating. And I'm going to be sharing various methods of retreat for superwomen who are over 40 so that they can, we can, I can renew, re energize, and replenish our energy as we are also lowering our stress level. We're going to talk about retreating, as I said, all month, and I'm going to share with you in the next session of Stress Talk Live the five benefits of retreating that you probably never even considered. I'm going to share that with you. Now, the next session of Stress Talk Live is not going to be on next Sunday because that's Easter, and I know many of you are going to be busy with your families, hopefully. Um, and I will also be spending time with my family. So, Stress Talk Live is going to be aired live on Monday, April 18th. I had to look to make sure. Monday, April 18th at 7:30. And I'm going to be talking about the five benefits of retreating you never considered. So if you hopped on late, you can always watch the replay on Facebook and YouTube so that you can get all of this good stuff that I talked about. And I'm going to just review real quickly what I talked about so that you'll know before you go through the replay. So I took you through retreat when vacation is not enough. And I shared statistics from the American Psychological Association's Stress in America poll. This is a poll that was conducted by the Harris poll on behalf of the American Psychological Association, and it showed it's just showing a need for retreat. It just talked about how we are so stressed as Americans and that we do need to retreat. I also provided a definition of retreat, actually three definitions of retreat. And then I talked about the four features of retreating. Next week, I'm going to talk about the five benefits of retreating that you never considered. So, hey, do you have any topics around stress, stress relief, stress management that you'd like for me to cover? just shoot me an email with the subject line of live stream topic suggestion or live stream topic, and that way I won't overlook it, and I'll open it, and I can possibly make it a topic that we're going to share with you. Thanks for joining me. I'm glad you were here. I'm glad you're part of Stress Talk with Marcyline. I look forward to our time next week and our next time together moving forward. If you have a stress situation that I can help you with, please let me know. Please, please, please let me know. And in the meantime, as always, take good care.